You're listening to Advancing Our Church. Welcome to Advancing Our Church, Changing Our World podcast about Catholic stewardship, leadership, and advancement. And I'm your host, Jim Friend. Welcome back, everybody, and thanks for downloading our podcast today. Glad to have you with us for another episode of Advancing Our Church. And again, we are on the West Coast. For the last 2 weeks, this is our third week and final week for now of visiting the West Coast. And today we are in San Jose. And the question of the week is, do you know the way to San Jose? And do you know that song, by the way? Well, we know the way to San Jose. I was with my colleague, Mr. Tom Farrell, Senior Managing Director at Changing Our World, and he joined me for this interview, and we took a beautiful drive down the West Coast and saw some amazing sights. We're in the heart of the Silicon Valley here in San Jose, and we met with Mr. Joe Naylor, who is the Chief Development Officer. Joe was appointed to this position by the Bishop in July 2017. He is doing an amazing job. He's put together a terrific team of development professionals serving the diocese and stewardship and development. We got to meet all of them, had a great conversation with Joe. Funny little story. After this podcast is completed, we decided we're going to have some lunch. Joe said, where do you guys want to go? Wherever you want to go. Joe, he said, all right, well, do you guys have an open mind? I think, okay, sure. Well, where do you want to go? We're going to the bowling alley. All right, we're going to a bowling alley. Fine. We go up the street, park, we walk in, go down some stairs, and I see this room, this tables are just covered with white linen tablecloths. It looked like fine dining. This lovely person sat us down, took our orders. We had a fantastic lunch and a great conversation with Joe, a lot of laughs, and just goes to show, never judge a book by its cover. We had a great time at the bowling alley. It was awesome. So thanks again, Joe, for your hospitality. Thanks for being on our podcast. And I think you guys are going to enjoy this interview with Joe Naylor. So without further ado, here is our conversation. Well, Joe, welcome to the program. So glad to have you here today.
Great. It's wonderful being here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Well, thanks for having us here in the Diocese of San Jose. I think it's my first time here in the Silicon Valley. So tell us a little bit about life here in the diocese.
Well, the diocese is comprised of around 600,000 Catholics. Mm-hmm. We're one of those dioceses that's just in one valley. So it is the San Jose and the valley here. And we've got 52 parishes, 28 elementary schools. And the great thing is we've got Microsoft and Apple and all the tech companies that are around us. So.
Yeah. And do you see that realized in some of your fundraising? Or
we do, actually. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's wonderful that many of the CEOs and vice presidents of many of our companies are involved in our parishes. And so we try to engage them in a lot of the fundraising and the programs that we have here.
That's great. Well, Joe, let's start with yourself there. Tell me a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I grew up in the Midwest in St. Louis, went to school at Rockhurst, a Jesuit school, came out to Los Angeles and worked for the Y for 17 years and then in healthcare, and then was recruited to work with the Jesuits up in Northern California out here and actually in Silicon Valley. Worked for them for 4 years, had the great opportunity to do a capital campaign for them. Then they recruited me out to the East Coast, out to Manhattan, to work with the New England province and also the province in Boston. So had a wonderful time there for 2.5 years, but missed the warmth. So came back to California, and at that time the bishop was entertaining the idea of doing a capital campaign here. And so he brought me back out here to help them ascertain and to do a feasibility study for our capital campaign. So
Wonderful. And where'd you go to school?
So went to the minor seminary in St. Louis, and then went to a school called Rockhurst University, a Jesuit school back in Kansas City, Kansas. So from the Cardinals to the Royals. So it was quite competition with the baseball out there.
That's great. I should have mentioned at the top that we have Tom Farrell here with us as well. Tom, welcome again.
Thank you, Jim.
Glad to have you here. Tom and I are kind of visiting some of the dioceses in California, and I was so glad that you accepted our invitation to be on the podcast today. But so, Joe, we were talking before the show started a little bit about your annual appeal. You have a very successful $9 million annual appeal. Has it been at that point for a while, or that level, or have you been growing it over the years?
Sure. Over the last 3 years, we've done a lot of purposeful tweaks tweaks to the program, enhancements. The goal usually is around 6 million to 6.5 million. Anything over the goal goes back to the parishes. And so 2 years ago, we held a fundraising bootcamp, which was an opportunity for all the pastors and the parochial vicars to come together with their finance chairs and talk about how do you create case statements and how do you identify the needs at the parish? How do you then, promote that and engage your parishioners? And the nice thing was it was an opportunity for them also to look at some of their top donors. So we provided them their top 50 donors and asked them, have you had the chance over the last year to meet with them, to thank them, to share with them, how their funds have been used. And so it was a great learning experience. We had a couple of testimonials from some of the pastors who have done a phenomenal job over the last several years speak. And a lot of them took that information and went back in the next year and identified projects at their parishes. And so they saw their increase go up 10, 20%. So we used to raise around 8 million. Then we went to 9 million, 9.5. And this year we've actually added more enhancements to the program. So this will be the first year that we've done sustained giving for the ADA. So again, it always amazes me that people have to fill out the forms every year. And they've been doing it for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So now we're allowing them, just like with your Netflix membership and your gym membership, it's year-round, painless. So once they sign up once, then that can continue until they decide to stop
end it. Just a reoccurring gift over and over. So exactly. Are a lot of those like monthly gifts? Or?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's a new introduction this year. And so we're looking forward to that. What we did a couple years ago is we decided with the video to create the video into 2 3-minute segments. So just like a podcast that was going on Facebook. And so we bought Facebook ads and targeted that to people on Facebook between certain ages. Then we looked at our restorative justice programs, the religious programs, and so really targeted that. And we saw a great increase in the number of people that were coming to the website that were looking at the videos. And so we think that really increased the engagement. Because I think the challenge probably as you've gone out to talk to other dioceses is that when you have only 30% of parishioners that give to your annual appeal, what's keeping the other 70%?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Facebook is wonderful that way, though, isn't it? You can target the geographic area, like you say, target the demographics, the people who might be interested in religion versus other audiences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So a lot of people might be into social justice, but they're not into vocations or Catholic education. Vice versa, you have a lot of people that really, believe and see the merits of Catholic education and want to make sure that all children have that accessibility. And so it's been great for us to really segment our donors and find out what their interests are, where it touches on their heartstrings.
It's great. And so you're kicking off your appeal again next month. Here we go again, right?
Here we go again. So,
how many years again have you been here in the diocese?
So I'm going on 3 years.
3 years. Okay.
Yes.
So this will be your third appeal?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great. And I like what you're saying about you just tweak a few things every year and just kind of add a few nuances. And I love the idea of a fundraising boot camp for pastors. That just sounds great. You got a lot of good feedback on that.
It was wonderful. They've asked for more. So
good. Where do you see that going then? You think there'll be another like you had a 101, now you're doing a 102 or?
We actually did this past 3 months ago. We brought all the pastors back again and we had guest speakers come from the diocese in San Bernardino.
Nice.
Again, talking about how do we engage our Latino parishes.
Perfect.
And different ways to market to them. And in our diocese, it's very interesting because all of our materials are in Vietnamese, Spanish, and English. But we have a Chinese church. We have Korean martyrs, a Korean church. We have masses that are in Tagalog. We have one parish that's in Portuguese, another one's in French. So we serve a lot of different groups in the diocese. So
that's wonderful. So what are some of the tactics that you're encouraging pastors to use who serve these different diverse communities?
Right. I think the biggest one is communication.
Yeah.
And so making sure that the message that they're wanting to share from their perspective at the pulpit is being able to be articulated to those various groups. And so even at the diocese, we make sure that our posters, our video, everything's in several languages and providing those services for them.
And telling their stories.
Right,
exactly.
Right. It's all about the stories.
It is.
And I think that's the beautiful culture of the Silicon Valley is that you have such a melting pot of people that are coming in the tech world from all over, from India and Asia. And so, again, I think our parishes really strive to be a welcoming location for them to build community and to meet new people.
Yeah, it sounds like a very, very diverse population, and certainly causes you to have to juggle a lot of balls in the air, making sure that everybody is addressed in their own language, and you're talking with them in their own culture and meeting them where they're at, right?
Yes.
That's a big challenge. That's great.
Yes. One of the key things I think we've done in the last year, too, is we had a major gift campaign.
Yeah.
And so we just finished raising $21 million.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was earmarked for education, Catholic education, for our seminarians, for the retired priests. But another big part of it was evangelization. And I think, again, having the resources available for our pastors and for our youth directors and catechetical directors, that they are able then to really minister to the people in their parish.
That's wonderful. And when you went after that group for it was just a major gift, just your top donors? Or?
Yes.
Yeah.
So our bishop, Bishop McGraw, former bishop, was here for 20-some years.
Yeah.
And he just retired this past May. So over the last year and a half of his time before Bishop Oscar Cantu, our new bishop, came in, realized that he would like to engage these families and donors who've been supporting him for the last 20 years in a small campaign. And so he met with 20 to 30 individuals and raised those funds for all the projects.
Wow, that's a significant amount of money for 20 to 30 individuals.
Right.
But it's a Silicon Valley, right?
Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
It's great dinners.
Yeah, some great dinners. And the economy here in the Silicon Valley is going well, thriving?
Quite well, yes.
Yeah. That's great.
It reflects very much, I think, the same sentiment across the country, and very much a lot of think tanks here in the area. So
that's great. So what does the appeal support right now? What is your case for support for the appeal?
Sure. So our ADA, our annual diocesan appeal, basically is looking at Catholic education, looking at evangelization, many of the typical things at Diocese, as with the seminarians. We have 10 seminarians right now, and then we have the retired priests. One of the areas, too, they're focusing on is development for our priests. We have 100 priests in the diocese, and they come from very many cultural groups, too. We have 30 priests that are Filipino background, and several that are from Argentina, and several from Africa. And again, so providing them the resources for administration, management, enrichment is a key thing. So,
do you guys provide that additional training for them, or are you working with any other groups on that?
So they do bring in outside resources, and the nice thing within Silicon Valley, we have Santa Clara University, the Jesuit university. So there's a lot of partnerships with Santa Clara.
So. Wonderful. You have 3 colleges, right? 3 Catholic colleges here, I believe, in the diocese.
So we've got Santa Clara,
right?
We have Stanford nearby, and we have, of course, San Jose State. So
that's great.
Yes,
that's great. How are you guys doing around plan giving these days?
So we have a Catholic Community Foundation that was developed from our last campaign in 2004. And so we do a lot with our foundation. And we established just 2 years ago the St. Joseph's Legacy Program. The St. Joseph's Legacy Program is to recognize those individuals who've left the diocese, their parish, or their school in their estate plan. And we have now 90 members of that. And so it's been wonderful. That's a partnership between the foundation and the diocese. And so we put on a lot of workshops helping educate people about plan giving and legacies. And it's been quite a great, productive relationship, and our parishioners are very happy about it.
That's wonderful. And so they are separate from your office. The foundation is completely separate. Yeah, yes. That's wonderful. And only been around for a couple of years. How is the governance structure set up with them?
So the foundation has its own board of directors. The bishop appoints several of those board members. I think they have around 10 to 15 board members right now. So
that's great. Wonderful. Yes. Well, tell me a little bit about stewardship in your diocese. Is that a function of your office?
It is, and we are continually looking at ways to enhance the program for our parishioners and the priests. We all attend the International Catholic Stewardship Conference, which I think is a great asset for all the dioceses.
And coming to your home state this year?
Yes, it will be in Anaheim. So we're encouraging all of our pastors to look at their stewardship committees and their development committees, and inviting them to take a drive down the 5 freeway down to Orange County. They can go to Disneyland for one day and the conference for the several other days.
Yeah.
And so that's a big push for us right now.
When you work in stewardship, what kind of services are you offering the parishes right now?
Currently, if they need speakers or if they need some work with their committees, we're able to provide that. So.
That's great. And how do you see stewardship here in the diocese? Is it a concept or a spirituality that people are comfortable with? Or in some dioceses, some parishes are exploring with it and others really, the bishop has embraced it. And how is it seen in your diocese?
Jim, I think you're right. I think that it's all over the gamut. All over,
yeah.
So Bishop Oscar Cantu, our bishop, is very in favor of assisting with all the parishes with stewardship. And he's also creating a culture of vocations throughout the diocese, which is key. So I think we're able to help those pastors who have a great interest and desire to learn more about stewardship and how people can enhance their relationship with Christ. So
wonderful. Tell me a little bit about this culture of vocations that he's trying to encourage.
Sure. It's a program which in the last several months he's introduced throughout the diocese, and it's inviting each parish has a special cross. We had a special mass at the Basilica, at the cathedral, and which people were missioned from each of the parishes, and that cross goes from house to house each week, and people pray for vocations. And again, as we all know, it's an invitation, come and see. And so I think it's very well received with the parishes right now.
That's wonderful. And obviously all across the country, we need a lot of prayers for vocations.
Yes.
Huge need in each of our dioceses. So certainly every diocese has been impacted by the scandal, the sex abuse scandal. And I'm sure that you guys have taken some proactive measures to address it. How is the climate here in your diocese with that?
Sure. The diocese has only been around for 30 to 40 years. And so it was a mission of the San Francisco diocese. And so luckily, the diocese has had no cases, major cases on the clergy abuse, but just like all the other dioceses, we're very hypersensitive to the issue and have done a tremendous job in the workshops and trainings, and the bishop hosted several listening sessions. So I think they've done a good job, addressing that.
Sure, absolutely. Are there any new initiatives happening in 2020 that you want to tell us about?
I'm wondering if you're going to ask that. So. One of the new things, too, we've done in the diocese is looking at our retired priests. And these are individuals who certainly have served the diocese their entire life. And there's never been a recognition of an appeal for the priests. And so just in the last 2 years, we started with Good Shepherd Sunday, implementing a new priest appeal for the diocesan priests. And so it's been well received from the parishes and their opportunity to give back to the priests that have helped serve them. So we're taking that program and really looking at how do we enhance it, and videos of some of the retired priests and testimonials from the parishioners. And so I think that's a new initiative for this year.
It's a very popular case for support. People do want to say thank you. These men give their lives to the priesthood and in service to us. And so it's a wonderful program that you're putting together there. It makes a lot of sense.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. What else are you working on this year?
That's kind of the top one.
That's the top one.
Yes.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, I think the big focus was the legacy of faith, and
sure.
And now for the next year, our Bishop Cantu is meeting with the different leaders of all of our parishes, and the hope is after a year there will be identified new focus and objectives, and we'll probably do a campaign around those. So.
Yeah. So, Joe, what would be your advice? There's a lot of folks who get into. Actually, I was talking to a colleague of ours. There's a lot of openings for development directors here in the California area. And we get new people in these chairs all the time who maybe come from another type of fundraising background, whether it's hospitals or like yourself coming from a religious order. What would be your advice to somebody who's new in the position? What do you think that their first couple months should look like, as a new development director? And how did you, when you came in a few years ago, how did you kind of tackle, this job?
That's a great question. So I think the key is really getting to know the culture of the diocese, and finding out about that culture is meeting with the pastors and some of the key leaders at our parishes. And so I think spending a lot of time asking the bishop as to his advice on which pastors to visit, and talking to the president of the parish, the priest council, meeting with some of those. And I think the other part is really your lay leaders, is really to find out who are the key people throughout the diocese at the parishes, and taking the opportunity to spend some time with them and do a lot of listening.
I think
that was very helpful for me. So
yeah. Well, that sounds exactly like what I did when I first took my role in Allentown. I wanted to get out and meet the priests right away, right? Because they're your fundraisers. They're your army, if you will.
Yes.
They're the ones making the ask. So developing those, I think, real relationships with them and being responsive too. I mean, whenever a pastor would call me, I'd try to make sure I called them back within 24 hours or less, right? Because
exactly
they need that kind of assistance.
Right.
And the mail they get from our offices is usually about a foot tall every week.
Because I think we realize that in the seminary, there's not a whole semester focused on fundraising.
Right.
And so as they're ordained, they need that assistance. And I think that the Office of Stewardship and Advancement can provide those services. And so you're right. I mean, when they're calling, just to be there and to walk with them as they're learning how to, make a case for their projects and how to steward their parishioners. Very key.
When I used to work with Bishop Barris, he's in Rockville Center now, but he came in as a new bishop in Allentown. And one of the first things he said to me was, Jim, I'm going to meet everybody. I want to spend a lot of time out there and be visible. And he was. I mean, he was at everything. It was incredible. But he also said, I know there's also some key people that I need to spend some time with, and I'm going to rely on you to maybe set up a little series of lunches. So he opened up his calendar and we would do a little mass in his private chapel at home. And then we'd have a little lunch, nothing fancy, but just an opportunity to have dialogues and conversations. It was so critical, and so many amazing things happened because of those initial conversations. We started a Catholic Business Owners Alliance network, and we started a Catholic education movement in our diocese. It actually turned out to increase enrollment for a couple of years. Just that dialogue, and the people really appreciated that time with the bishop.
I think that's critical. I think we've had this diocese have the Bishop's Circle of Excellence, which is an opportunity for our donors to meet the bishop several times a year. One is a retreat that goes on during Lent every year.
Nice.
Another one at Christmas time to meet him actually at his residence and to spend time with him there. And then we have a barbecue at one of the parishes in the fall.
Oh, fun.
And you're right. I mean, it's a great time for them to interface with the bishop, get to know him, hear what his priorities and what he's focusing on. And it really helps them and their journey and their relationship with the church.
Yeah. And people, I like you say, I think they really do appreciate that time, and they get to know him on a personal level, and he gets that into that personal dialogue with them. He gets to hear what their needs are and then can respond to them. Bishop Barris always had just this incredible memory too. I mean, he literally, as you can imagine, met thousands of people. And he just remembers names like you wouldn't believe.
Great.
I'm so awful at that. Do you have a major gift effort kind of ongoing in your office?
So we've just completed the Legacy
campaign.
Faith.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was really highlighting some of the immediate initiatives within the community. So I think all dioceses are struggling with the Catholic education and keeping the doors open and looking at new ways of enhancing that with STEM programs and
How is Catholic education doing here in San Jose?
It has its challenges, but the program is maintaining, which I think is key. And there's several schools, parishes that are actually looking at capital campaigns to enhance their physical site and to build on to their programs to the schools. So we're hoping that will...
That's promising.
Yes. Very promising. So
enrollment's been pretty stable.
Steady.
That's great.
Right.
That's wonderful. And you told me how many schools you have, but how many do you have?
28.
28 schools.
Right.
How many high schools?
So we have 3 high schools in the area.
Yeah.
One, the Catholic high school for the diocese, and then we have a lot of the private schools that are in diocese for the Jesuits, the Presentation Sisters, Notre Dame Sisters.
How big's your average school? They all kind of vary a little bit.
I would say around the elementary schools are mostly single schools.
Single grades?
Or single grades.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a couple that are double schools.
That's wonderful. Do you guys, does your office get involved in any fundraising with the schools or?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. In the future.
In the future.
That's all right. Yeah. I mean, I remember when I first started, we had 4 people in my office. So just sometimes it takes time. And before I knew it, they added on Catholic education. Then we started a foundation and the appeal grew. So you're only here 3 years. You have all that in front of you.
And we've started with 4 just like you did.
Yeah, that's great.
We're ready.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So you are planning to come to ICSC this year.
Yes.
And what's your view on ICSC? It seems like Chicago conference was full. Wasn't as full as I think it had been in previous years, but I'm sure you always get a good turnout in California, though, right? People are going to come for the warm weather.
People come out here, yes.
Yeah.
I think that it's because of the new cathedral that's there in Orange County. I think that'll be a draw.
Yeah.
I think Star Wars at Disneyland will be a draw. And again, I think the speakers that will be presenting, certainly enhance and bring a lot of people there. And we hope in our diocese, because it's only a 6-hour drive or a short flight, that a lot of our parishioners from our parishes will take advantage. Our foundation is going to be offering scholarships and grants to parishes to be able to go to the conference. So,
well, that's great.
There'll be a good contingent from San Jose there.
Yeah, I'll say. Well, we will be there. We're looking forward to it. We were talking earlier, Joe, about pastors, and how do you develop those authentic relationships with pastors? What has been your experience over the last few years?
I think the key with a pastor is being able to be available to him when he has a question regarding stewardship or the appeal or major gifts, planned giving. I try to go out and visit a lot of our pastors and go to the Mass at our various parishes and to support them when they're having an event. So whether it's participating in their golf tournament or going to their gala or different events, I think it's being visible for them. So when I got to this diocese, they didn't have the Legacy Society. So that was new. Yeah. They didn't have any workshops for the pastors. So the boot camp and then this past year bringing the people together, but we're limited in the staffing. And so I think with the new bishop, I think his vision is, what are the other things we can be doing? So, because I think in this area, having a gala or a ball or, great opportunities.
Absolutely. Is Catholic Charities, do they have their own development office?
So Catholic Charities has their own development team, right? And I think one of the challenges in Silicon Valley too, Santa Clara is going through a $1 billion capital campaign. Oh. And so they've geared up with a wonderful staff there and have certainly shared their mission and the need for higher education throughout Silicon Valley. And they are a strong, wonderful force in this area.
What are some of the challenges that Catholic Charities are facing in San Jose?
I think, as we find in California, homelessness. So really dealing with just this today in the mail. I mean, in the news, it was, again, a mobile park that 700 residents are being evicted because they're going to utilize the space and put in new high rises. I think we're constantly confronted with that issue. Many of our parishes, probably half of them, have a program where the homeless are able, that have cars, can be on their property. And then they'll bring in the showers for them to be able to utilize the showers in the morning. And so that's a big ministry, and Catholic Charities is playing a big role in that. And then also working in immigration and advocacy, so some key topics.
Yeah, absolutely. How about the fires that we all hear about? Does that impact you up here in this part of the state?
Many of our families know of relatives in Sonoma and also in Southern California that have been affected by the fires. We've been very blessed that this area has not had any of the fires, but certainly our neighbors to the north and the south. Yeah. And we try to support them in any way that we can.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, Joe, any closing thoughts for the podcast? We're so glad to have had the opportunity to kind of visit with you a little bit today. Any closing thoughts?
No, I think it's great spending the time with both of you. And 2020 is bringing in clear vision for all of us.
Yes.
And it's going to be a great year of wonderful opportunities and looking forward to it. So
that's great. Well, thanks for being on the show today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
God bless.
I want to thank Joe for being on the podcast today. Joe, it was great to be in the Diocese of San Jose. I am looking forward to seeing you again in Anaheim. And I'm actually looking forward to seeing all of you in Anaheim at the International Catholic Stewardship Conference. Are you going? I hope you're going. We just registered as a vendor for the conference, as we always do, to support the work of the International Catholic Stewardship Conference. And of course, we signed up to do a workshop, as we always do. And I'm not sure exactly what the focus of our podcast will be. We're hoping to interview many of you who will be down there, and maybe we'll do some kind of an event to celebrate the great work that you all do and to celebrate changing our world and maybe get a a few of you on the podcast. If you want to stop by our booth, I would love to hear more about the work that you're doing. So, but here's a question. Would you enjoy a workshop on podcasting? Because that's what we're pitching to the committee for ICSC, and I hope that we're able to offer that to you at the conference. So let us know. Let us know if you think that would be a good topic, if it's something that you're interested in. And what are some of the other topics that you might want to hear on Advancing Our Church? We have some webinars that were in the works. I won't spill the beans on them just yet because we're still working on them. But do you have a topic that you're curious about? Or is there a guest or someone that you think would be ideal to be on our podcast? I want to hear from you. So a couple ways you can do it. You can shoot me an email at jfriend@changingourworld.com, or you can go to our website, advancingourchurch.com. You can click Leave a Voicemail. Right on the homepage, actually any page on the website, click Leave a Voicemail, lower right-hand corner, and leave me a voicemail. Tell me what you liked about this week's episode. Say something great about Joe Naylor, and I would love to play it on next week's show. So go do that right now while you're thinking about it. Go to advancingourchurch.com, leave a voicemail. Tell us what you loved about Joe's work this week, or any of our previous guests, or anything you like or want to hear on the show. So any comment, I'd love to hear from you. And again, thanks for everybody who retweets and likes and shows their appreciation for us on social media. And again, if you'd like to support the show, a great way to do that is to leave us a 4 or 5-star rating on iTunes and leave us a comment. And I would love to read your comments if you want to leave us one on iTunes. We've had some very nice reviews and would love to include you among our supporters. It helps to promote the show. Well, that's our show this week. Many thanks to the Changing Our World podcast team and to Podastery Studios for their support of our show. And again, if you'd like more information about the show, please visit us at advancingourchurch.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Advancing Our Church is a production of Changing Our World. We're a fundraising and social impact consulting firm, and we've been advising both nonprofits and corporations for the past 20 years. So for more information, please visit us at changingourworld.com. Changing Our World celebrated 20 years last year. That's very unusual for a consulting firm to make it that long. It just doesn't happen in our business. And so we are so grateful for the clients that have supported us, that have partnered with us to do great things, to advance the mission of our church, really from coast to coast, from dioceses to parishes. And we would love to count you among those partners. So if there's some way in which we could help you through a campaign or through increased offertory program, or just look, if you want some free advice, we're happy to consult with you and talk with you on the phone and just hear more about your situation. Please feel free to give us a call. Once again, thanks for all you do to advance the mission of our church, and I hope you all have a terrific week. Take care, and God bless.